Chef Zachary Mazi, all the way from Thailand. So thanks for getting up so early to do this with us today. But since we can't travel anywhere right now, really, this is nice that we can kind of virtually visit mushrooms of a place where there's moisture. Colorado, as you know, has been fairly dry lately. The only thing that I can say is that this recent snow and like overnight temperatures going low has allowed our oyster mushrooms in our backyard garden to pop. These aren't the prettiest, but here are some from today. And surprisingly, some shiitake logs that we plugged to 2 years ago after Telluride. We didn't think they were ever gonna work because it's just so dry in Colorado, but we have this amazing specimen right here that popped out of nowhere. So we're hoping that's the beginning of a flood. Anyway, otherwise what we've been finding, people have been reporting shaggy mane, inky caps in Denver and some other stuff right now. So we'll see, the season's not totally over yet, but we need more moisture and we're just gonna keep an eye on that. I should introduce myself. I'm Ben Kinsley, president of PPMS for this year. And we'll go through other officers and you can introduce yourselves to everybody if they don't know who you are already, and announce any business that you might have. So let's start with Alyssa, our secretary.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for coming today. Glad you could all make it. Welcome to our September meeting. I am, like Ben said, Alyssa, the secretary, club secretary, and I handle all of your questions. If you ever have questions or need information, you can email me at info@pikespeakmike.org. I'm always available to answer your questions that way. And you can usually respond within 24 hours, usually sooner, but sometimes it takes longer. That's all I have. Brian?
Hi, I'm Brian Barcy. Been a long time club member and mushroom enthusiast and mushroom student, and really excited with the directions the clubs are going all across the country, but especially our club. I'm so excited about how progressive we're thinking and how open our club is. And I can't wait for next year when so many new things are excitingly coming down the line, and all the great work. And I met Zach in Soma camp last January. What a nice guy and what a great chef. So always exciting to host such wonderful people. Welcome, everybody.
Thanks, Brian. Beth.
Hey everyone,
Beth.
I'm the treasurer, and if you want to send me money, send me money. We've had several new members in the past year, not as many as we've had in the past because of COVID, but money is still coming in, and you know, find me if you want to send me some money. So.
Thanks, Beth.
Just go to our website.
Mercedes.
Hey everyone, I'm Mercedes. I'm the co-editor of the PPMS newsletter with Jesse. Would also like to add that we are looking for contributions for our final newsletter of this season, which is coming up in a couple weeks. We want the material, so if you are interested in submitting anything or like wondering if there's a topic that you think like might be interesting but you're not really sure what to do with it, like just reach out to either of us and you can send submissions to editor@pikespeakmike.org, I believe. These are some really big Pioppino mushrooms. There are a lot of them. Like if anyone wants some, come and get them. They are from a commercial grows dumpster because they don't toss them after one flush. And so these are just sitting in my yard, and I checked the bags yesterday and they are really popping off. So yeah. Oh, and I guess I'll talk about next month's meeting as well. It'll be also our last meeting for the season, and we will be hosting Olga Zogas from Rochester, New York, with the company Smugtown Mushrooms, and she also helps put on New Moon Mycology Summit. And the topic is TBD, but it's going to be really awesome, whatever it is. So I encourage y'all to be there.
And what's the date again? The 20th?
October 21st.
October 21st, 6 p.m. on Zoom/YouTube live, as we've been doing it. Thanks. Okay, and then last but not least, Jennifer Bell, Vice President of PPMS.
Hey, thank you very much. Thanks for tuning in tonight. Several good things happened in 2020. That's hard to believe, I know, but one is that you don't need to iron pants for meetings, and two is we can get people from pretty much anywhere on the planet to present to our little club here in the Pikes Peak region. In fact, tonight's guest is coming to us from northern Thailand, where it's early in the morning. Mercedes and Brian and I all went out to Soma Camp this year, and that's where we came across Chef Zach. He's an impressive person. All of his events, and Soma Camp is well known for having a stellar lineup of very famous mycological people. And each of his events was standing room only, but they kept letting people in, which is good because I was late. He's impressive because he's mixed a lot of different things into his life. I mean, I have too, and that's why I find him so interesting. He is a classically trained chef in the French tradition. He is working on book projects with various people. He's a restaurateur. He's a scientist. He's a biologist, and just a super soulful dude. And congratulations on getting engaged, Zach. Talk to us.
Okay. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for having me, guys. This is awesome. I actually got a chance yesterday to update the talk, so there's several new things and new information that I'm really excited to share. Yeah, so I asked my then girlfriend to marry me in March in the height of the pandemic, which was kind
Three things happened.
Yeah, three good things happened, right? Just sending out some love in the height when everybody was sort of having their breakdown. Actually, what, 6 months ago. So September, March 21st. So yeah, that was really great. So yeah, right after Soma, Kim and I flew to Thailand for 10 weeks, and we are still here. So starting, I guess, tomorrow is our 1-year education visas begin tomorrow. So we are planning to be here for another year, which means now that we're at the end of mushroom season here, it means I will be here through next mushroom season, which is really exciting because I'm learning to speak Thai. I'm learning to get along with some of the folks that otherwise don't speak any English at all. And those are the folks that are out there hunting mushrooms and whatnot. So I guess without further ado, I'll just start the talk if that sounds good, and folks can get to know me through that. And yeah, let's see how we go here.
I'll just add, I forgot to mention, but questions can be asked in the YouTube chat window, and we can relay those to Zach at the end of the talk. So we'll hold questions till the end, but feel free to ask as we go in the chat window.
Okay. All right, guys. So this is a new talk that I've developed since being here called Edible Mushrooms in the LANNA Kingdom. Rainy season here is from May through September, although we just had the largest dump we've had through the whole season. About 3 a.m. and my house was totally flooded this morning. So that was kind of interesting. That was a new one. So the LANNA kingdom, you can see up there in the top of the picture. LANNA was founded in 1296 AD by King Magre, and it existed for a good 250 years, sort of as part of the Southeast Asian Peninsula's powerhouses. And it became a vassal state of Burma in the 1500s, and then Siam basically funded a war against Burma when the British came in, because the British were going to try to colonize everything. And Siam sort of took over the LANNA kingdom, but allowed them to remain independent, and they are still very independent in the food, in the way that their language. They even have different language, Thai language specific to the area. So Chiang Mai is sort of the epicenter. It's also the second largest city in Thailand.
My sister Jeanette was born.
I want to meet Brian. So I thought I'd do a little video for you guys. This is centered around Chiang Mai. This is one of those fun Google Earth things, but as you'll be able to see, let's see. Oh, back. What are we doing here? So this area is filled with mountains. And it's hard to tell, but the mountain over by Mae Ping there is about 7,500 feet. Chiang Mai itself is about 1,500 feet. And the mushrooms are usually around 3,000 feet or so. That's Burma over there in the top of the screen now. So Chiang Mai is really situated sort of right where the thrust of the Indian subcontinent is pushing all of these mountains around. And it's really just an incredible area. So how did I find myself here? Well, 2020 happened, as I described earlier. We came here for a 10-week trip to marry some people and to go to a festival, which the festival was supposed to begin the day after Thailand banned all gatherings. So we got stuck here, and I've pretty much dove in because this place is incredible. So I want to talk a little bit today about the food and then how that relates to mushrooms and the culture. So LANNA food is not equal to Thai food. Everything that we've learned about Thai food is about the same as we've learned about Mexican food, as opposed to actually going to Oaxaca and eating the food there. Northern Thai food is often a handsy, reaching across the table, lots of different chili pastes and spreads, several dishes. Thais like to put small amounts on their plates when they eat, rather than the American style of just loading up your plate and eating it all. They'll put a small amount, eat it, add a new one. And they've been influenced by the whole Southeast Asian peninsula, which, you know, their immediate neighbors are Burma, Laos, and Cambodia. And of course, Vietnam and China is not very far away. And there's a lot of Silk Road spices up here in this area, as opposed to southern Thailand. Then, of course, colonizers, although Thailand itself was never colonized, the Dutch and several other trading companies from the late 1500s started coming through this area, and of course, Malaysia. And then modern Thailand has really acquiesced to Westerners and to the demands of Thais that are going global. And basically, what you see now is a very modernized take on traditional culture. It's really something to see. Chiang Mai is very hip. This was one of our dinners. This is my fiance up here in the upper left. My friend Eric, who's from Isan, and my friend Pooja at the top. These are two of my influences for cooking. But this is a very standard Northern Thai meal. You have several different dishes, and this plate of vegetables in the middle is super common. I mean, literally eat a bite of dip, eat a huge mouthful of vegetables, and it's more greens and more herbs than I've ever seen in any type of cuisine. So we try to eat like this as often as we can. Some Thai language. So these are the general ways that you find food being cooked here: grilling, charring, drying, boiling, stir frying, steaming, fried, and mashed. Some of these dishes you may know, like tom kha gai, the tom in that is boiling, and mashing, like the papaya salad, som tam. Now you'll notice that tom, tam are all different words. That being said, tam are also 5 different words. So Thai is extremely hard to get down. The tones are tricky. So when you speak to Thais, they'll look at you funny, and you're like, I know I said that right, and they're like, no, you didn't say that right. Grilling, ping, charring is pao, makua pao is charred eggplant. HEDGEHOG, that means dried mushrooms. Head is mushrooms. Stir frying, you're probably familiar with, pad thai. Vegetables are pak around here, so pak nung, steamed vegetables. Crispy pork skins, mutad. Saute is kua, and around here they say lap kua. And then mashing is a huge thing, sam tam, mashing. Just a quick primer on that. To eat here is the same as to eat rice. So if you say kun gin kao my cup is have you eaten, but it also means have you eaten rice. And the same thing with drinking is kun gin nam my cup is have you had water, but also means have you had a drink. So if you want to ask someone out for a drink, you're like, would you like to go drink water? The food and cuisine is called ahan. So Thai food is ahan Thai. And a restaurant here is Ran Ahan, which is like a business of food. And then lunch, for example, is Ahan Grangwan, which is food midday, translated directly. Or Ahan Chow, food morning, Ahan Yen, food at night. And as far as mushrooms go, mushrooms are called head. And head in Thailand, they start with the general and move on. So you get Earth Star truffles, which are their early fire season mushrooms. They're a bit like the Thai truffles. Head THOB. THOB means popping. Shiitakes, head home. Home means good smelling. Oysters, head nang fa. That's angel wing mushrooms. And I like mushrooms a lot. Chan chop head mak kap. That's probably chan chop head mak kap. The tones are really hard here. I want to eat mushrooms. Chan yak gin head kap. And kap is a polite thing to say at the end. If you're a man, ka. If you're a woman, you'll hear it on the end of every single sentence people say. It's very cute. I've been diving in here to see how I can find, because everything's in Thai. So what I've found so far is that Dennis Desjardins, if you are familiar with him, he and Kevin Hyde actually founded the Mushroom Research Center north of here in the mountains about 6 or 7 years ago, I believe. And that has been a sort of a field camp for folks here that want to stay anywhere from a week to several months to do their field work and research for PhDs. The Thailand National Parks and Conservation Board is quite active, and I'll show you a piece of a poster that they put together. But the national parks here are just incredible. There's a ton of scholarly articles out there about the diversity or the biodiversity or tracking new names, especially now that we're getting into the genetics. And then starting to get into local guides and chefs, but amazingly, even though it's been mushroom season and a lot of the vendors on the side of the road have several types of mushrooms, you do not see them in the restaurants. So these are a home cooked ingredient. You do see, the cultivated mushrooms in restaurants, but you rarely are seeing the wild harvested mushrooms in the restaurants or in the stalls, which is interesting. And then just recently, because of reaching out to Dennis Desjardins, I got in touch with the Chiang Mai University's Microbial Research Lab, which I'll expand upon in a second, and that was really exciting. So this is Dr. Yai. Dr. Yai just got his PhD, and they discovered that one of the boletes here, which is a massive black bolete with yellow pores and yellow flesh, called the Phlebopus portentosus, apparently attracts an insect that kills its host plant and then changes to being a saprobic mushroom. And so he basically created he's running a large-scale commercial cultivation of this particular black bolete. I mean, these things get to be like a kilogram and a half. They're massive. So I got to go visit his lab and see his production. So this lab is very small. It's cute. It's sort of like one of those, you're in an academic building, you walk through a tiny door and all of a sudden you're like surrounded with the coolest research equipment. These guys were really, really lovely. And I hope to be using Yai's expertise on edible mushrooms to get any updates as they're coming up with the new names. But basically these are the guys that are finding the new mushrooms when they do the DNA samples and observations. And speaking of which, their main accolade is that the Thai white truffle was discovered in 2015. This is Yai here on the lower side. That's Dr. Sizemorn, a colleague of Dennis Desjardins. And I cannot remember the guy on the left's name, but he basically got to name the truffle. So tuber Thailand dictum, and it is as a white truffle as any white truffle there is. So that's pretty exciting for Thailand. That puts them even higher up on the culinary map for unique ingredients. And it is a unique genetic truffle to the area. So that's pretty fun. That's all coming out of this lab. So this is the poster I was talking about. This is put together by the National Parks and Conservation. Now, Dennis has said that pretty much all of the names on this are wrong. As with many developing mycological areas, the first inclination is to name the mushrooms based on the morphogenic features after European or North American mushrooms. So while these are definitely russulas, they're probably not these particular russulas, which also is a big opportunity for folks like Dr. Lion Sizemore to start genetically analyzing these and finding out if they are in fact related more to Indian, Malaysian, Chinese mushrooms, or if they're unique to this area. So that's kind of exciting. But for me personally, I want to know what's edible. So I've actually put together what, as far as I can tell, the most comprehensive guide to edible mushrooms in Thailand. So I've been collecting information from all over on that. So 67 of these mushrooms are from the previous poster. I found about 30 different mentions from various research papers and websites about edibles. And then I've added 3 that I haven't found anywhere in the literature from a couple hikes. That says August 7th, that was one. And then I found another a month later in the same area. So I've been putting that together. This is what that looks like. So bringing in English names, the Latin names, the Thai names, and you can't tell there's a column there for actually when I start to learn the Thai alphabet, sources, and then I'd like to start collecting the information on them because at the end of 2021, I would like to put out a Edible Mushrooms of Northern Thailand book. So that is sort of the long-term goal. I'm pretty excited about that project because as far as I can tell, it does not exist, at least not in English right now. So pretty fun. So let's get into them. Here are the cultivated mushrooms that you find in the marketplace here. Very common head home shiitakes, head kem tong is the enokis, head nong fa. Now nong fa means oyster, or means angel wings. That's the oyster mushroom. They eat these a lot. Now, amazingly, they eat the split gill here, which I hadn't ever seen before, head kang, and the straw patty mushroom, very common in Asian food, head fang. Straw patty, the jelly ear, the black fungus that you find a lot in the Chinese in Chinese preparations. Head hunu they eat those, right? I couldn't find a Thai name for the beach mushroom or the king oyster, but those are very common. There's a lot of mushrooms, bamboo shoots, and banana flour used in place of meat here, which is pretty great. Very convincing texturally. This is sort of this is actually earlier in the season. So up above the title on this thread, you can see those truffle-like things in the background there. Those are the head THOB. Those are unopened earth stars, and they are super delicious and super controversial. And then there are several of the cultivated mushrooms here in the lower hand, and you can see my hands filling up on the head fang. And this is one of my favorite vendors. Actually, right now she's got piles of chanterelles, which is really exciting. So some of the some of the mushrooms I've seen in the marketplace that have been foraged, as I mentioned, the head THOB. And I'm going to go into a little more detail on these mushrooms. Several lentinus mushrooms, some of them hard to chew, some of them quite delicious. The head har is the mushroom I was talking about from the lab that they're growing. You see russulas quite a bit, some termitomyces, and then quite a few of the Caesar mushrooms, although here that's the Amanita hemibafa. And then just recently, this is a new addition as of yesterday, head kameen. Kameen actually means turmeric, or is the name for turmeric here. So head kameen, turmeric mushroom, is the Cantharellus minor, which are these tiny little super delicious chanterelles. So let's go over them a little bit. This is the head THOB. This is an unopened earth star. So if they do open, they burst open and they look like earth stars, but they are a very controversial mushroom here because they are worth about 10 times more per kilogram than any of the other cultivated. And they grow under the leaf litter in the forest here. And unfortunately, as our rainy season comes to an end and there's a bit of a brief clear time for fall, and then burning season happens. And burning season is for a number of reasons. It's very dry. Farmers are burning off. The hill tribes use burning to clear the area for the semi-wild planting that they do in the forest. Agriculture companies take advantage of that time and burn forests so that they can be like, oh, it's burned, I guess we can plant corn now. And then people burn the forest to hunt for these mushrooms. And mostly this is the hill tribes. There are migrational groups that have come from China, Burma, Vietnam, Laos. There are about 7 such groups, and they don't really follow the borders as much as, say, like the Thais or the Lao. They sort of are fluid, or they were fluid before COVID. And these mushrooms grow under the leaf litter. Now, starting any fires is illegal. So what I understand is they'll start a fire to find these mushrooms and then leave without putting it out because they're afraid they're going to get caught. And that turns into raging forest fires here. So when you're hiking in the woods, it's quite a deluge, but you can see where forests have burned in the past. And the air quality here is supposed to be as bad as San Francisco right now in February through May. So hopefully we're going to get out of this area. But wow, what a delicious mushroom. Not quite truffly, but just so powerful and pungent. I put them in my freezer and it smelled up the whole fridge and kitchen for several weeks. This is HEDGEHOG. This is the mushroom that Dr. Yai is cultivating. These are gigantic and they are delicious. I'd say they are reminiscent of a butter bolete, if you've had any butter boletes. Like unctuous, very umami, but also really meaty, really awesome mushroom to cook with. And pretty exciting to pay attention to Yai as he starts growing these commercially, because I don't know of any commercial mushroom that's grown that's this large. So this really could do a lot for feeding communities and also for putting Thailand on the map in terms of some really delicious boletes and whatnot. Well, I don't know what happened in that picture. Skip that one. This is a HEDGEHOG. This is a LENTINUS polychrous. It is one of the most flavorful mushrooms, like Agaricus princeps or Agaricus augustus. Sorry. It has the flavor of the most powerful, like agaric, like the portobello mushroom, or if you've had a Prince Agaricus, it's just one of the most. You cannot chew them. They are totally inedible. But wow, they make the dish really, really tasty. I bought these being told they were one thing and then discovered they were another thing through Alan Rockefeller's kind intervention. Luckily, they are an edible species because I ate them because they told me they were edible. But wow, they're really delicious and super interesting. And then just recently, this is Cantharellus minor. These are in season right now. These are maybe, I don't know how to, those are banana leaves behind them. These things are tiny. Like the largest one is maybe 4 inches. They are the most fragrant chanterelles I've ever encountered in my life. They are to the nose, to the flavor. They are just such a fantastic mushroom. I'm itching to get out there and find them. I haven't quite learned their altitude, but we did find some recently on a hike. And then I want to go over some of the edible mushrooms that I found just in the woods, because basically all of those before were mushrooms I've seen for sale. We found some giant puffballs. Now, anything that has an asterisk here is recommended by Dr. Desjardins. These are not the real names of these mushrooms. There's no record of finding these mushrooms here, but for the lack of a better name, this is what they look like. And this is certainly what it seemed like they were. You can kind of see the picture in the back there is a giant puffball. We found several of those. We found hedgehogs. My fiance Kim tends to attract the hedgehogs to her when we were hiking in Oregon and California, and that did not stop here. She's like, "Hey, look at these!" We pull them up. What do you know? There's hedgehogs here, and they were small, like the HYDNUM umbilicatum that you get in California. We found some Caesar amanitas. They're just these gorgeous red and yellows. What we believe is some kind of grisette, Amanita vaginata, some kind of witch's butter. And then there are several chinkapin trees up at higher levels, around 4,000 feet. And I was looking at their little their spiky seed balls and being like, oh, wouldn't that be funny if we found a Fistulina hepatica, a beefsteak mushroom, just kind of joking. And like 15 minutes later, turned the corner and lo and behold, there was one. We also found wild reishi mushrooms. That was pretty exciting. And then the purple laccaria, you've seen those. They usually come up in 1 or 2. I haven't found enough to harvest or make a meal out of. And then ignore that misspelling on chanterelles. We did find some of those recently as well. So this is, so looking down right now, you can see Chiang Mai, that little red dot. What that square is actually the old wall of Chiang Mai, and it's a moat. And pretty much if you want to find your directions around Chiang Mai, you talk about spinning off the center of the corners of the various walls. Kim and I live about where the A in the Haya sub-district, just below the wall is, where that letter A is. And you're looking at, Chiang Mai is about 150,000 people in the city itself, and Chiang Mai province is about 2 million people spread out through several small cities. But at 150,000, it is the second largest city in Thailand to Bangkok at 25 million. So the population of northern Thailand is very spread out. And nearby are some really incredible mountains and valleys. And so let's see, I'll show you here. This is going to go down to the Doi Pui. This is over in the past. So this was one of the hikes we did. This is oak, chinkapin, several trees that I haven't identified yet, teak, and pine as you're getting up to the higher levels. Down there, sort of rotating from the bottom right, there is a Hmong Hill Tribe village. It's an awesome place to get outfits, and they, again, don't actually speak Thai themselves. They speak Hmong and some Thai. And we've started several hikes there, including one that said was 12 kilometers and ended up being 18. That was pretty brutal, but we did find chanterelles on that one. Let's see here. So this is what it looks like when you're up there. This is Doi Pui National Park. You can see the pine trees there. That being said, not very far below this, it's like jungle. There are vines everywhere. There are epiphytes. You see ferns growing around the top of the trees. There are fig trees. The banyans that take over entire areas, and right next to the pines, you might see bamboo. So this is actually looking off the backside of the mountain away from Chiang Mai. And I'm told that when the dry season comes, this will all be like just a tinderbox. So it's kind of important to get up there now in the rainy season and see everything, mosquitoes and leeches and all the fun things. Apparently there's gigantic cobras here. I haven't seen any yet. But my friend said he had a 3-meter cobra on his deck the other day, so that doesn't sound very exciting. But yeah, what a beautiful place, really awesome. So these are some of the mushrooms. These are from our hike. This was the Amanita hemibatha in Thailand, not the Caesarea. You see these ones on the side of the road quite a bit. It's kind of one of the more obvious Caesar-clad mushrooms. These are the hedgehogs that we found. I'm calling them HYDNUM umbilicum for lack of a better word. They're about that size. Around here I learned they're called head fawn. Fawn means tooth. So this is the tooth mushroom. But I haven't seen them anywhere, and I haven't found them in any of the literature yet. So that was a pretty exciting find. This was a very old Fistulina hepatica. Needless to say, I left it behind. But I also haven't seen that one mentioned anywhere in the literature. So that's pretty exciting. And then these are the tiny little chanterelles, and as you can see, they are tiny, but just like one handful of 5 or 6 of these things, and it is like overwhelming apricot, woody, mossy, just that chanterelle smell that's just phenomenal. So it's been really great to just get up there. Our first hike, we actually took pictures of everything we found, not just edibles, and logged over 75 different species just staying on the trail. We didn't even venture off the trail for fear of cobras and leeches. But just staying on the trail, we found 75 different mushrooms that I'm slowly working to identify with Alan Rockefeller. And then, of course, the giant puffball. This was the first one we found, not even as big as the one we ended up taking home and eating. So this is to shroom or not to shroom. That is not even a question, right? So as far as I can tell, this is not Calvatia gigantea. There is a Calvatia that is on the record here called craniiformis, which it looks wrinkled like a brain. And these were not wrinkled. They were very, very smooth. So in eating mushrooms in Thailand, so far I haven't found anything super exciting. A lot of mushrooms end up in curries and soups, and they're just sort of thrown in there and like in their limp mushroom self. I guess the chili paste is really fun. And PRIK non-prick is something that you're probably familiar with without knowing it, but anytime you've made a Thai curry, that curry paste that you buy, Penang, green curry, red curry, any of those curry paste, that is actually a non-prick. Those are called non-prick gang. Gang means curry. So non-prick gang are used to make larger curries. Around here, they have non-prick chim, which means to taste. And they basically make these chili pastes, and you put it on vegetables or you dip mushrooms in it. So mushrooms are often just steamed and then eaten with non-prick ka, which is a non-prick using the galangal. And it is a really awesome flavor pairing, really pungent. Or you'll see them as a side sometimes, just like a veggie side sauteed with garlic and chilies. And then finally, I think the most interesting thing is a fermented mushroom dish called nam head. Often nam is made with pork, but there's a local lady here who is fermenting mushrooms for about 4 or 5 days, wrapped really tightly in bamboo leaves. And it is super delicious. So I need to learn how to make that one. This is actually just outside of my house. I live on a compound that even my Thai friends are envious of, with several houses on it and a cooking school. So how that happened, I don't know. My fiance Kim has a magic with Airbnbs. When we got to Thailand, when we got to Chiang Mai, they had just opened up provincial travel. And we thought we were going to be stuck for 14 days in our house, because at that time they were asking everyone to quarantine, even in domestic travel. So she got us this really beautiful, large 3-bedroom LANNA style house for $600 a month. And we were there for 2 days when the government came and visited and said, nah, don't quarantine, just wear masks, you're fine. So we've actually stayed in that house. We've been there the whole time. This is a community garden that we're allowed to eat anything. Pretty much everything you're looking at is edible. Around here, they eat leaves off of trees. There's a cinnamon tree that you can grab the bark off of, licorice. A lot of the ones in the pots there are turmeric, galangal. There's lemongrass everywhere and all kinds of green leaves. And as I said, they just have plates of greens. So it's really exciting. Just go out to the garden, pick a whole plate of greens, take it home, have a couple dishes, and it's like greens, non-prick, greens, non-prick. Really exciting and a fun way to eat. So I want to show a few recipes, and I will actually share these recipes with Jennifer and with Ben, so they can send them out to the group. That way I don't overwhelm you with text. But one of the things here in Thailand is the grandmas and the kitchen mothers that cook, they don't have recipes. And so when I've been cooking with them, I've asked them to like just push the ingredients onto the cutting board and show me what you're doing, and then I will like count the shallots and count the chilies and then put those down in the recipe, because it's all muscle memory here. And so this is non-prick head, and you're looking at two different. You're looking at the head THOB, which is the round or star truffle, and then that's the head har, the yellow bolete there. I ended up making two different non-prick head. So basically, all the non-pricks, you put them into a mortar and pestle, and you crush up all these ingredients. The non-prick, generally shrimp paste, chilies, garlic, and shallots, which they call hom dang, which is delicious red onion. That is the basis for all the non-pricks here, whether it's fried first or just eaten fresh. It's very similar to salsa verde in Mexico, and then you just kind of mash other things into them. So this is nam head. So this was wrapped in banana leaf with sticky rice and some garlic, and left out at room temperature for several days. And it ferments and it becomes this like really delicious sort of sour mushroom. As I said, they also do this with pork, and in Isan, they just go ahead and eat that raw after fermented. But yeah, raw pork, interesting. I'm learning a lot. And I will try to do my best to share the recipe of this. I mean, I think it's just basically thyme and sticky rice with the mushrooms, and I'm not sure. I imagine the mushrooms are actually cooked first, given their texture. Or it could be that they're steamed and then left out to ferment. I'm not sure yet. I don't speak enough Thai to learn that yet. Now this is one I just came up with, so this is a little bit more complicated recipe, but in the tradition of the grandmothers showing their things. This is non-prick Penang. So if you've ever had a Penang curry, I decided to make a Penang curry from scratch using the chanterelles that we found in the actual curry paste itself. And then I took it a little step further and added a bunch of those dry spices down in the lower left corner. Those are very Chiang Mai spices, Silk Road spices. You'll see Balinese long pepper, some black cardamom, and then they have it's similar to Szechuan peppercorn. They call it here makwan, and it gives that sting or that tingle in the mouth. So basically, you mash all of these things together, and you get your PRIK, and then use that for your coconut curry. This has been really exciting to really play with this and dive in and realize that what Northern Thai food is and what their traditions are is nothing to do with any Thai food that you've ever experienced. So I know what you may be thinking, because I was thinking this too. Maybe you've never eaten Thai food before, actually. It's very similar to going to Oaxaca and realizing you've never eaten Mexican food. This is from one of the markets here. And this is not uncommon to see. And what's amazing here is that the cooks are, and all the people that run the kitchens, that run the restaurants, it's all women, which I find to be very cool, because in the States, it's a very masculine game in the kitchen. So it's been really lovely to sort of see the traditions. And in order to make sense of all this, I'm putting together a cookbook. So this is Quarantine Cookbook Volume 2, and it's basically a journal of my explorations into the heart of LANNA cuisine. Those are the tools of the trade there: bangers, mashers, sautéers, steamers. You generally use those tools every single day in every single dish. I'm about 35,000 words and almost 100 recipes into this cookbook. So I'm hoping to have this done in time for maybe not Christmas. We'll see. I'd like to get it like properly published. But yeah, it's really exciting, and it pretty much lays out all of the stuff that I was just talking about culinary wise. There'll be a nod to some of the mushrooms in there, but I'm going to save some of the mushroom recipes for the next publication of Thai edible mushrooms. Now, which way are we going? Now, how you can help with that? If you would like to follow me, I have a Patreon page. It is patreon.com, mycophagy book. I have about 11 supporters right now. Thank you guys. They're awesome. This is where I post recipes, scientific articles, essays that I've written, discussions. It is a member page, so you can choose to pay different levels of access. It's also where you'll find, I give all my members access to the comprehensive list of mushrooms from Thailand that I've created, as well as anything new that I'm finding. So it's sort of a great repository for the book on mycophagy that I'm also working on, the art and science of cooking and eating mushrooms. Really diving into how we can, well, ultimately, I'll tell you, the goal is to have every cookbook out there have a meat, plant, and fungi section in their cookbook, because it's about time that we give the third kingdom, the third culinary kingdom, its due and rightful place. Too many cookbooks put mushrooms in with vegetables. You know, you have broccoli, tomatoes, mushrooms. That's not fair. They invented vegetables, for Christ's sake. Yeah, so please check that out. There are several posts on there that are also available to the public. But if you'd like to see how you can help out and support me while I'm in Thailand and unable to work on this education visa, this is one of the ways. If you would just like to get some information, I did put out Quarantine Cookbook Volume 1 in April. This book is free. It's got 63 recipes, mostly Thai, mostly Southern Thai, before I discovered Northern Thailand. But if you go to my website, foodbender.com/recipes, and give me your email, I promise I only email like once every 2 months, you can get a free copy of this book. It's a PDF available for you, and it's pretty fun. It's sort of my experience in quarantine, a lot of personal stories, and some of the recipes that I did while I was cooking for the 10 people that I was stranded with. So that one's pretty fun. Finally, you know, just kind of figuring out what you do in Thailand when you're stranded and not on a work visa. So Kim and I have started making face masks. Kim's plan was to get involved with textiles down in Mexico and some of the local tribes there. And luckily, Chiang Mai and Oaxaca City are pretty much identical other than the culture that they are situated in. And the hill tribes around here just have some of the most incredible hand embroidered patterns and traditional costumes. So we're working with a local fair trade women's artisan collective, and they are making face masks for us, and we are sending those over to San Francisco. So we have an Etsy shop where you can get these really awesome face masks. They are triple layer, have a filter pocket, nose wire, go around the back of the head, and every single mask is, we're actually, and this is really sad, we've ordered about 1,100 face masks. We were one of the nonprofit's largest customers since COVID started. And so this is putting real women to work. And they are so grateful to have this opportunity to have work when there's no tourists in Thailand. So do check that out. There's a lot of really cool ones there, and they ship within a few days. And we're also developing some new products on there. So it's pretty fun. Kim and I are both living our dream here in Thailand. So it's been really exciting. Thank you all for paying attention. KHABKHUN mak kap. I really appreciate that. And I will stop sharing my screen if people want to get into some questions. Where's my mouse? Okay.
Thank you. That was awesome. I'm hungry now. I was watching the questions roll in, and I think you answered them as we went. Why are Earth stars controversial? You ended up covering that, and then we were wondering on our end here what kind of trees these mushrooms were growing in association with. But I think you kind of covered that. But I mean, is there anything else you want to say about the trees in Thailand?
There's several kinds of oak here, and I haven't identified which ones those are, but there are an incredible amount of acorns, and I'm curious to find out if the hill tribes actually eat the acorns, because the volume of them on the ground was sort of hard to ignore. There are some really cool squirrels here as well that do eat the acorns. As I said, the chinkapin, the chanterelles I just learned grow with the Dictyocarpus, I think it's the teak tree, which produce these amazing leaves like this big, and when they dry, they actually use them for thatching on the roofs, which is pretty cool. And then there's several pines, so a lot of the amanita and some of the boletes and suelas are growing up higher elevations with the pine trees here. And I need to get more specific. Tree identification has always been my weak point in the mushroom hunting game. So I'm gonna start talking to the guys at the microbial lab and see if I can't get a little bit more grounding. You know, I'm not a mycologist. Keeping all these scientific names in my heads and associations is difficult. I'm just like, can I eat it? But you know, the more Thai I'm learning, the more access I'm being granted. Thailand is a really beautiful country, and the people's main concern is what they call saving face. And so it's really, really offensive to embarrass anybody, to yell at anybody. Nobody yells at anybody here. It's all smiles. As a foreigner, you are always wrong. You're sorry, and you'll do better next time. And that is the best way to get around with everything. And so if they don't speak English, they won't talk to you because they don't want to come across as unintelligent or unable to carry their end of the conversation. And so as I learn more Thai and more conversational Thai, people have really been opening up. And I think also just showing up again and again at the same market stalls, I've started to make friends with folks that do not speak English, but I'm starting to get there. And so I'm hoping that, because I'll be going to school for Thai language soon, that by next mushroom season, I should have access to folks that are out hunting and foraging and some of the ladies that are out there gathering. So I'm looking forward to this. It's a long game, as everyone knows. Mushroom season, if it doesn't work this year, it works next year. For anyone listening that's new, there's no rush. They'll come back next year. They'll come back next year. So yeah, I'm really excited to like dive into this and to do it in a thorough way. I'd like to learn it inside and out from the cultural perspective and the scientific perspective.
So there's a national park in Thailand that is capturing trash that people have left there And mailing it back to them. Did you hear about that?
No, but that's amazing.
How cool is that?
Yeah, they actually, since COVID, you know, they closed the national parks for 3 months. And when they went in and did a survey, they saw that the rehabilitation that happened in those 3 months has led them to discuss closing every national park on a rotating basis for 3 months at a time to allow nature to come back and take over again, which is pretty neat. I mean, they're the father of the current king is responsible for setting up a massive amount of royal projects, growing biodiversity, really helping people become really proud of the area that they're in. And so there's national parks everywhere in Thailand, and they're very open, and they're very come in and, well, actually they're not very open right now, but they're very much into people learning. There's wonderful signs everywhere. The sort of the gift of the kingdom to the people was to bring education and to bring just an incredible wealth of knowledge and to share it with everyone. So it's just such a wonderful place to be, I must say.
There's another question on the chat from Ian. How do the truffles compare to Oregon truffles in quality and taste?
You know, I haven't tasted the white truffles yet, but apparently they are equal in quality to the Oregon white truffles, and equal in price. So it was actually a pretty, you know, now they're working on trying to cultivate them as they do elsewhere, and find out what they can do to grow orchards in order to have the white truffles, the Thai white truffles. I'm not sure how the truffle would fit in with Thai cooking in particular, so it'll be interesting to see. You know, this is only 4 years old or so, so it'll be interesting to see how that is integrated into the sort of fusion cooking that's taking over Thailand right now.
Cool. I don't see any other questions in the chat right now. Jennifer or Alyssa, do you guys have questions?
Zach, you might want to talk briefly about the project you're working on with the blizzards.
Oh yeah, right. So mark your calendars. Trent and Kristen Blizzard are they in Pikes Peak?
No, they're on the western slope, so they're in Grand Junction.
Okay, and they, I don't really know Colorado that way. Anyway,
I think I got both clubs, our club and the Denver club.
Oh, okay, got it. So I got to meet Trent and Kristen Blizzard at Soma, and as it turned out, I had a cooking gig right after Soma for a week on the Mendocino coast. And unbeknownst to me, Trent and Kristen had rented a cabin only 3 miles away from where I was to go mushroom hunting for the week afterward. And as a result, I got to hang out with them for a whole week, running around the woods and foraging in January, right before we took off for Thailand. And they are about to release a book called Wild Mushrooms. Their website is modernforager.com. And I am one of the featured foragers in the book. So that's really exciting. This will be my first actual published recipes. So that's really neat. That book comes out October 13th. And October 1st, I am actually going to be on their webcast live, having a live discussion, sort of wide-ranging discussion from all kinds of things, mushroom and cooking. So that's really exciting. I'll be posting that as well. So October 1st, I believe at like 6 p.m. or so, Colorado time, there'll be a webcast with Trent and Kristen, and yeah, their book is coming out, and I think it's several people in there. I know Eugenia Bone is one of the featured foragers, and I'm not fully aware of all the other ones. But yeah, brand new book coming out, and it looks beautiful. A lot of recipes and a lot of really cool stories and identification guides. So that's pretty exciting. Thank you, Jennifer, for that. That was a slide I forgot. So many projects. You know, one thing I've learned about being in Thailand, the Thais are incredible entrepreneurs. They have about 5 businesses. Their side hustles have side hustles. And if one doesn't work, they're just like, okay, fail. They fail often and fail quickly, move on to the next thing. So somebody might get up, our neighbor gets up at 4 o'clock in the morning to drive an old woman to the market That's one of his jobs. He's also a handyman. He's also an electrician. He also cooks food. You know, there's people that show up at 9 p.m. at night on their bikes bringing rotis around, and they probably have like an engineering job in the day. It's just incredible, and it's really addictive. So when you're here, you're like, okay, what can I do next? What kind of projects can I work on? Like everyone I know is crocheting, plus cooking, plus doing this other thing, plus. So yeah, it's been really neat to see just how innovative people can be while also still living their lives. They don't feel like they're under the grindstone here. So it's been really sabai sabai, as they say, chill, sabai sabai, sabai di my cup.
The gig economy.
Yeah, thank you guys so much for having me.
Sure, it was nice, Zach. Thank you.
Thanks for coming.
Yeah.
Okay, wait, we have a couple more questions if it's okay.
Okay. Yeah.
A follow-up to the truffle question, do they use animals to hunt them like we do with dogs or pigs?
Yeah, that's a good question. I don't know the answer to that. I think it's like pretty brand new. You know, they still have their display case for having discovered it up in the microbial lab, but their awards and their accolades and the big sort of hoo-ha that Thailand put on to sort of announce this jumping in. So I'm not sure what if there are even truffle hunters here yet. That's a good question. I will find out that information, because obviously I would like to know, and I'd love to start playing with some Thai truffles if that's possible. Yeah, I think they had the most expensive one they've found yet, and it was several tens of thousands of dollars worth. It was like, you know, like a golf ball, a tumor looking golf ball size thing. It was apparently very delicious and enjoyed by some of the higher ups in the area.
There's a side hustle for you.
Yeah, right, exactly. Truffle hunting. That would be, well, if it's going to be here, you know, great, I'm in.
And, yeah, I just see another comment about the earth stars, but do you know of other places where earth stars are eaten? I guess that's not so common, right? That we eat earth stars.
Yeah, that is a good question. I don't know. And it's similar to the similar to the stinkhorns that are eaten. They're eaten in their egg stage. And I think that's kind of the same as these. I don't know that they are still edible once they become earth stars. That's a really good question. And no, I haven't. But you know, this is kind of my first, other than being in Mexico, this is sort of my first foray, if you mind the word, into the world of mushrooms outside of the U.S. and outside of Europe. And the cuisine is quite different, and they're really into texture here. You know, they're really into chewy, crunchy, strange things. And that mushroom, if anything, although the flavor is phenomenal, as you bite them, it's like biting a hard bubble. I mean, they really pop when you bite into them. It's not like they're really like pop in your mouth, head pulp. So it's a bit of exciting as well. You'll have them in soup, so you'll be eating the soup and then kind of pop, you know. So yeah, that's a good question. I mean, I assume they eat them, you know, in Vietnam, Laos, Burma, and the areas that are, other than land borders, virtually identical, at least ecologically, to this area. So yeah, I'd love to learn more. I think that'll be part of the spiraling out from Chiang Mai and learning more about the traditions of mushrooms in the whole Southeast Asian peninsula, if I can get that far.
This is awesome. I don't see any more questions, but thanks so much.
Yeah, awesome. Cup. Sawadee cup. You guys have a wonderful evening. Sawadee danyen. And I'm gonna go see if the water has drained from my kitchen. So for those who weren't here at the beginning, I woke up to about 6 inches of water covering the entire first floor of our house, which is new.
It's no fun.
You know, like sloshing through muddy water to make my coffee. And man, that was a downpour last night. So pretty excited. It always rains, but this is the highest it's ever gotten. So we got a bit of mud to clean up this morning.
Document any house mushrooms that start growing now.
Yeah, good one. Yeah, I actually do have some schizophilum growing on one of my old bamboo planters. And what else have I seen around here? There's been a really interesting one that it looks like a polypore, but it grows off of the roots. So it comes up like a mushroom, but it's growing off the roots. So it pops up in the yard, but then when you dig down, it's actually it's a tree rot fungi of some sort. So yeah, I'll have to pay attention, see what happens. They certainly have a lot of logs here, so maybe we can get some oysters growing or something in the meantime. But all right, guys, thank you so much.
Okay. Good morning, Zach.
if Thailand is open next year, I'm gonna do some Thai mushroom trips. So let's hope for that. And good luck in the States, guys. I know there's some big things happening here in the next month or so.
Yeah. Crazy time.
Have a wonderful evening.
You too.
All right.
Vote.
Bye, Zach.
Bye,
Bye,
everyone.
everybody.
Bye,
Thanks for
YouTube.
joining us.
Good Zoom meeting.
Yeah,
Good.
guys.